Initially, when this became an issue, I was very disappointed in what appeared to be a very flippant disregard for the impossible situation many folks would find themselves in if these services were to leave the state of Minnesota. And they seem to think that this is some sort of game of chicken that's being played right now. And I think people need to realize that's not what's happening. You've got a company that is actively winding down operations in the state of Minnesota, and you've got a city council who has now decided to extend the enactment date of their ordinance. So if you're paying attention to the supposed game of chicken that's being played, what you should really know is you've got two companies that are already 1 foot out the door here in the state of Minnesota. And if the legislature does not fix this issue by the end of this legislative session, we're going to have failed the people of Minnesota who rely on this service. So let's take advantage of the time we do have to actually bring about the change and do what we need to do as a legislature, lean forward on this and actually show some leadership. The final question I have, Mr. Chair, is for the author of the bill, if I may.
Senator Duckworth.
Thank you. If for some reason, Senator Fate, we find ourselves toward the end of session, we have not passed a bill that's going to ensure these companies are able to stay here that resolves the issue with the ordinance passed by the Minneapolis City Council, will you take a look at the 24 recommendations that were passed, or excuse me, not passed, that were suggested by the task force whose sole purpose was to solve this issue, essentially make them your bill and try to get it passed so that we can bring some certainty to the people of Minnesota?
Senator Fate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Duckworth. The purpose of the working group is to make sure that the 24 recommendations are put into language that match what those recommendations are in bill form. There are some areas in which they weren't as explicit, so we had to talk about interpretation and what we believed it meant. But the working group process, as I said before, is working.
Senator Duckworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You can feel free to correct me if you want to, but I guess I did not hear a yes there, and that's what I was looking for. So in the absence of us knowing whether or not the work of that task force is going to result in a bill that's going to prevent this state from losing these two companies, I'm very concerned, Mr. Chair. We've got some work to do as a legislature here. I hope the governor decides to show some leadership and weigh in on this as well, because if we allow this to happen, it's not going to be because we couldn't get the job done. It's going to be because we chose not to do the work.